I don't just talk about other people's stuff, I also make my own. Books in particular. To date, I have 4 books you can check out on Amazon. Operation Red Dragon: The Kaiju Wars Part 1, Occult Mafia, Emerald of Maddox City, and the short story collection Assorted Absurdities, Tales of Kaiju Punk and Other Genres. Hop on down to the description for Amazon links to all 4 books. Enjoy whichever ones you read, and enjoy the video.
Egypt, ancient land of mystery and wonder, strange realm of deadly curses and untold riches. What awaits you in this land of cyclopean statues? What can be found in the hidden chambers beneath the Great Sphinx? It is said that those daring enough to scale the pyramids may find themselves face to face with the only thing that could frighten the pharaohs and the gods themselves.
That's right, folks. Titanic Creations is at it again, making a line of original kaiju figures to entice collectors such as myself. They started with the heroic monsters Titanicus and Nosferodon, and now it's time to meet the villains, starting with a creepy crawly straight out of Imhotep's worst nightmares. Say hello to Skureaus.
Before we get to the figure itself, something must be said about the new packaging. The previous 2 figures came in cardboard boxes with illustrated depictions of the creatures within, but Skureaus makes his debut in a transparent plastic box, which allows you to see the figure before you even open it. Despite being clear, the box still contains graphic designs all the way around, making the box itself a display piece of its own. I suppose this might be an option for collectors who prefer to leave their treasures sealed up in the packaging, as so many are wont to do.
Me, though, I like to play with my toys, so I opened him up. Having done so, let's get a closer look.
Well, here he is in all his glory. Skureaus has been touted as the biggest TC figure so far, and there's no denying that. He just edges out Titanicus and Nosferodon in both height and length, but definitely surpasses them in terms of width thanks to his sprawling legs. He'll definitely take up a lot of shelf space, make no mistake about that.
Before we get into the finer details, let us consider the overall design of this kaiju and ask ourselves, what kind of kaiju is Skureaus anyway?
You see, Titanicus is a traditional kaiju in the vein of Godzilla. Reptilian physiognomy, humanoid torso, spikes on his back, earthy color scheme, and overall straightforward design. Nosferodon, by contrast, is a non-traditional kaiju in the vein of Biollante. Strange complexion, not recognizably humanoid, odd appendages everywhere, bright colors, and just overall strange looking. Skureaus, however, is a combination kaiju, like Dinosaur Tank. At least 2 things are meshed together and the result is a monster. In this case, we have the head of a cobra extending from the body of a scorpion, 2 of the deadliest desert creatures known to man. It sounds straightforward, but as a basic concept, it's immediately recognizable.
Yet the design is not as simple as just combining a literal serpent and arachnid. There are finer details in here that make Skureaus' design unique.
Some details are obvious, like how he only has 6 legs, not including the pinchers, or how the area where a scorpion's hideous face would normally go is a blank slate. Move in closer and more details emerge. Spikes rise from the back like a raging fire frozen in place. The tail has exaggerated segments and extra prongs on the stinger. Each set of legs is sculpted just a little bit differently from the others. The face appears to be a strange appendage which might at any moment extend even further from the flared hood. 4 wicked lime green eyes gaze out at the world, and the protruding fangs evoke the hideous visage of Count Orlok. The concept may be as simple as stitching a snake and a bug together, but a lot of extra detail was added to make this beast feel like a unique entity all unto itself.
In that regard, there's no denying that Skureaus looks amazing. Of course, Skureaus is also a collectible figure, so he needs to function in that regard as well.
Paint has no glaring issues that I can see. The scorpion section is solid black with ash-gray highlights meant to help the bumpy textures stand out. This was a smart choice, as the figure would not have looked nearly as interesting had he just been solid black. Heck, he might have blended into some people's shelves had that been the case.
Thanks to those highlights, we can really appreciate the details.
Scorpions usually have smooth exoskeletons, but this rough exterior makes Skureaus look like he's made of solid rock, a detail which visually conveys strength and durability. The head, of course, is where we find more variety of color. The hood is mostly done in orange tones, ranging from light to dark in stripes that follow the neck's S-curve. Meanwhile, symmetrical swirling patterns on the back of the hood are painted in dark charcoal. The face is the same yellowy beige tone you expect from a snake's underbelly, and the tongue is reddish purple, both touches that make him look extra hideous. The eyes, as mentioned before, are lime green with black pupils, and all four are painted evenly with no errors that I can detect. At the base of the neck, where it connects to the body, paint is applied to create the impression that the head is emerging from within the exoskeleton. Here the application is a tad bit dodgy if you look at it closely, though from a distance it looks fine.
Okay, so the figure looks great, but what about articulation? Here's where I ran into some issues.
Thanks to his multitude of limbs, Skureaus has the most articulation points of any TC Kaiju, with 11 total. Now, getting the figure to stand can be a bit tricky, since the legs branch out to the sides, he has no feet, and the figure itself is very heavy. If all 8 limbs, and that includes the claws this time, are not positioned just right, Skureaus will succumb to his own weight and fall flat on his underside. Rest assured that the right posture can be achieved, and as long as he's on a level surface that doesn't get jostled around too much, he'll remain standing. Still, you might want to consider putting something underneath him just to be sure.
Moving on to the head and tail, though. Look, I know the Titanic crew watches my videos and they listen to customer feedback in general, because they're always trying to improve as they make new figures going forward. So what I'm about to say, I don't mean to be destructive, I simply think that it's worth pointing these things out so as to hopefully avoid them in the future. It is entirely possible that the flaws I'm about to highlight here are just on the figure I got, but if it's a common problem, I feel they really should know. So please keep that in mind, and let's dive in.
Okay, so the tail has 2 rotational joints, one at the base and one just before the curve. It's that second joint where I find an issue, as it's surprisingly loose. When positioned upright, it will remain in place, but when positioned in any other direction, gravity takes effect. Essentially, the stinger can only point up or down, there ain't no in-betweens.
As for the head, it's one solid piece that can spin all the way around. Early on there was talk of possibly adding a wire into it and making it a bendable piece, but that ultimately was not implemented.
Okay, so the head is one solid piece that can rotate in a full circle. I have no problem with that. As for how it connects, well, see for yourself. While moving it around, it keeps threatening to pop out of the socket. It hasn't yet, mind you, because I've been very careful, but this is the first time I've encountered something like that with one of these figures, and I'm honestly kind of shocked it's an issue at all.
Like I said, it's possible these flaws are just on the figure that I got, and if they are common problems, that could be attributed to global events messing with production. If they are common problems, though, I do still think it's important for them to know and hopefully avoid those issues moving forward. But as always, Skureaus is meant to be more than just a cool design. He's also meant to be a character, like all of the other Titanic creations. So how does he fare in that regard?
Unfortunately, Skureaus does not come with an origin comic like Titanicus and Nosferodon, so the available information is limited. According to the website, Skureaus is an ancient Egyptian superweapon controlled by an amulet which is currently in the hands of Nazis. Word from various sources and live streams also says that Skureaus is the direct rival of Titanicus, the King Ghidorah to his Godzilla, if you will.
He also got a teaser trailer, and that has me cooking up theories.
The trailer is narrated by a nomad who tells the tale of grave robbers attempting to raid a pharaoh's tomb, only for Skureaus to rise from the sands and smite them all.
When I initially saw this trailer, I realized that the 3 kaiju revealed up to this point, Titanicus, Nosferodon, and Skureaus, all seem to have some kind of connection to the 7 deadly sins, specifically in how they appear to be reactions to those things. Hear me out on this.
Titanicus's claim to fame is sinking the Titanic, the so-called unsinkable ship. The Titanic is frequently framed as a symbol of man's hubris, also known as pride. Nosferodon's trailer depicts him rescuing children from murderous barbarians who slaughtered an entire village. Their violence can be categorized as wrath. Skureaus, meanwhile, kills grave robbers explicitly identified as succumbing to greed.
It feels like a pattern to me, and I'm curious to see if that actually goes anywhere or if I'm just suffering from apophenia.
Alright, so what's the final verdict? As a figure, Skureaus is quite the ambitious undertaking, and that proves to be a bit of a mixed bag. There are issues with the joints and weight displacement, but the overall design and execution make for a really cool-looking monster. As a character, based on what little we know, he has a lot of potential, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that's realized.
He's not the best figure Titanic Creations has produced, but he is still pretty impressive in his own way. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer signing off. Look, everyone, it's a post-credits stinger. I regret everything.
Congratulations, you reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, you might want to consider supporting us on Patreon. Of course, the other way to support us is to go to Amazon and check out our books, Operation Red Dragon, The Kaiju Wars Part 1, The Occult Mafia, Emerald of Maddox City, and Assorted Absurdities, Tales of Kaiju Punk and Other Genres. Also check the description for links to DeviantArt and other platforms we operate. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.